Good evening and welcome to the Speak Easy podcast. I am your host, Constance Willard, and I am excited to announce that tonight we will be launching our premiere series on relationships and Christian dating. I have some phenomenal guests here in the studio with me this evening, and we're going to just give some good tips and have an engaging and candid discussion on relationships and Christian dating. How do we date appropriately and how do we date accordingly? And so I'm going to bring my guests up one by one. Yeah, I guess I'm going to bring them up. Okay. Well, I'll bring Tracy up. Good evening, Tracy. This is Tracy Carr of San Antonio, Texas. She is the owner of Artistry of Hair. She's a stylist. She is a minister. She's a singer. She's just all of that and some more. Yes. Tracy, welcome and tell the listening audience about yourself.
My name is Tracy Carr. I'm originally from Norfolk, Virginia. I've been in San Antonio since 2004. I am the owner of Artistry of Hair located in Schertz, Texas. I've been here now owning for 14 years and in the business for 34 years. I have two sons and a grandson, and I always say there's more to me than just doing hair. So that wraps it up.
Okay, well, great. And so, Tracy, just kind of tell us, are you single, married? What is your current status right now? Are you dating? Just kind of share that.
I am single.
Okay.
I am single. It's one of those things where I'm not going to say dating. I just always say one step at a time. If anything, right now, I'm dating myself and learning how to love more of me.
Okay, great. All right, so now I understand that about dating yourself because, to me, especially at the age I am now, it's so important that we, especially as women and men too, that we understand who we are and whose we are, and just learn to fall in love with ourselves and to enjoy our own company.
Right.
And, that's me. I enjoy my own company. I go out to dinner by myself. I go to the movies by myself, which I prefer because I don't want anybody talking to me when I'm trying to enjoy the movie and asking me questions.
Right.
And so
I just want to enjoy my popcorn.
I travel alone. It's just a matter of just being comfortable with yourself.
Right.
And, just enjoy yourself. But I'm having a hard time bringing everybody else up to the stage. I don't know why. I can't bring them up. They're still here. Okay, so I'm going to take you out, Tracy, and I'll bring up one more. They won't let me bring you up. Well, oh, wow. I don't know why I can't bring them up. But anyway, we're going to continue the conversation while I continue to work on this. And so let's just kind of talk about it. I decided to do this podcast because I know for me, growing up in the AME church, dating was not discussed.
Right.
Not talked about.
Right.
The thing we ever heard in scripture, it's better to marry than to burn.
Right. Right.
No guidance no spiritual guidance or instruction on how to date appropriately and how to
Right.
date accordingly. Now, I'm going to date myself.
Right.
Back in the day when I was coming along, we had telephones, pay telephones, and
Oh
they were
wow.
public pay telephones, and they were 10 cents per call.
Yes. Yes.
So whenever I would go out, my mom would give me 2 dimes and a nickel.
Uh-oh.
1 dime was to call if you need a ride home,
Right.
and the other was to put between your knees and hold it there to keep from opening your legs. And that was my crash course on dating. That was
Yes.
my master class on dating. And so
Right.
then
Right.
what happens is we're not receiving the proper structured guidance and instruction. And this is perpetuating throughout the generations. And so
Right.
we go into these relationships unprepared with all types of preconceived notions, which may be
Right.
false, and 9 times out of 10 they are. And then those relationships turn into something else and they grow, you get married, and then we are not able to communicate. We're not able to understand what's going on. We're not prepared to be
Right.
married because we weren't prepared properly to date.
Right.
And now the household is all tumultuous and jacked up, and we wonder why. And so
Right.
that's why I want to have this engaging conversation tonight on
Yes.
relationships
Yes.
and Christian dating.
Yes.
If I could get these people on this stage, I don't know what is going on. I can't get them up here. Even if I take you off, I still can't. But anyway, we're going to continue the conversation. They're hanging on. We'll get them on eventually. Let's see. I think this is it right here.
Okay.
Let's see. Press Shift Plus. Okay. No, that didn't do it either.
They were wanting to know if they should leave and try to come back on.
Yeah, tell they may need to do that because I can't bring them up. They're here. They're sitting right here looking at them. But yeah, ask them to leave and come back on. Thank you so much. Okay. That may work. Okay, so while we're waiting for them to come back and join us, and so just kind of briefly tell us about your experiences with dating.
Whew.
There you are, Siobhan. Thank you.
Okay. As far as dating, let me say, I'm not even sure if it's considered dating. A lot of people don't use that term anymore. A lot of people look at it as, oh, I'm going to go hang out with a friend, or I'm bored. What are you doing? Let's go out. And they take one step at a time. Um, and this is for the newer generation. I don't know, but it's really no lineup when it comes to dating anymore. It's more so, oh, let's go out as friends, or are you hungry? Let's go get something to eat, or do you want to go hang out? It's just one of those things, but there's no specifics on necessarily. I'm trying to date you. I'm just getting to know you.
Okay, so what you're saying is people are not really dating with intent.
Exactly.
It's just a matter of just something to do. You're hanging out, but there is no intent behind it.
Right.
Okay, and this is more or less for the older generation or the younger generation of both.
I'm going to say both.
Okay, all right. So, out of curiosity, what were you taught as a young woman coming up, or by your parents or your church leaders on dating and what you should do and how you should conduct yourself?
Of course, when you go out, you should conduct yourself as a lady. Um, and like you said, what you say about the 2 dimes and the nickel, how you
Mm-hmm.
have to take the nickel, is the nickel the one that keep your legs shut?
The dime is smaller.
The dime with the
The
small one.
dime is smaller, and it takes more work to keep it there in place. So yeah.
Yes. So, just behave, knowing your background. And of course, I'm not sure about you all, but back in the day, our parents say, well, we already know what you're doing. So it's like you can't hide anything because you're going to already know what's taking place while you're gone. So, there's no surprises. So those are some of the things that I was taught, know where you come from, and know that I'm going to know before you even get back home what
Oh
took place.
wow, wow. Wow. So I'm going to introduce Siobhan. Okay, Siobhan is known as the relationship strategist, and she owns a company where she does coaching and provides guidance on relationships and to help couples to work through issues and to strengthen and rebuild their relationships. So, Siobhan, I want to say welcome to you. And if you don't mind, just kind of tell the audience who you are and what all you do.
Hi, thank you, Constance. And like you said, I'm a relationship strategist. My company, The Word Perspective, is a coaching and consulting company, and I help Christian couples in committed relationships to strengthen their partnership and eliminate unhealthy behaviors through effective communication. I'm also an author and a speaker, and I love love, so I love keeping relationships together. I'm not in the business of putting them apart, and I believe that no relationship is ever too far gone that the Lord can't get in there and fix.
All right. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And next we have Jessica Raybon. Jessica, good evening. Jessica is a professor. She's a mother. She's married to a minister, Jordan Raybon of Des Moines, Iowa, and she herself is also a licensed minister, and she's a logistics officer in the military. I call her Sister Soldier. And welcome, Jessica. How are you?
Hello, Miss Constance. Hi, I'm doing well, thank you.
So just tell the audience about yourself and who you are.
I am originally from Florida and ended up in Iowa. Actually, the way I ended up in Iowa was on military assignment, and I met my husband here. So I happened to be visiting a church and met my husband and ended up staying in Iowa longer term. I am a professor of English at our local community college here, a mother of three. Youngest daughter is 2 months old now. And I am an educator at heart for sure, educator in the civilian sector as well as educator in the church. I do believe in just educating the body and people. The Bible says we perish for the lack of knowledge, and I truly believe that when we know and understand the truth, then we're able to apply it and just live better lives. So that's who I am.
Amen. Thank you so much. And Pastor Cockfield,
Yes, ma'am.
good evening. How are you?
Doing fine.
Okay, now I met Pastor Cockfield the first weekend that I moved to San Antonio by accident, really. Um, Took my son to a barbershop. He gave us a name of the church, but we went to the wrong church, which happened to be Pastor Cockfield's church. Loved it, stayed. Um, had a good went to a wedding the very next weekend. His son got married the next weekend. We went, didn't know anybody, but had a good time. Met his mother at that time, established a good relationship with her, and so we have just maintained in contact over the years. So welcome, Pastor Cockfield.
Thank
Just
you.
welcome, and I look forward to the knowledge and the insight that you're going to give us tonight. And so we're talking about relationships and Christian dating and the lack of guidance or the need for guidance from the church's perspective to help those of us as we're coming up, old and young, on how to date accordingly. Do we date with intent, or we just out there, as Tracy said, just hanging out? That's fine if that's what you choose to do. But if you're looking for a mate and you're looking for something more and you're dating with intent, how does that work? So, Pastor Cockfield, I yield the floor to you.
Well, I'm going to be very candid. I
Okay, and
think
that's
this.
what we want.
Yes, yes. So I'm divorced now. Just recently, 41 years. I was with the person, knew her family before I got married. I was raised with a family, raised in church, all this stuff. She sung in the choir. I'm a musician, and we was married 38 years. Now, I would say let's look at how we got married. And I've said this just a couple weeks ago. So I didn't know who God really was. I was just a musician in church. So I'm being transparent. Back then, I didn't care. I just loved playing. I'm in a church. I meet her. My intent was sex. I wanted to get with her. She came out of a relationship. We start dating. She ends up pregnant. So we come from the old school Baptist church. So we got sat down, and I got told right then and there, we're going to prepare y'all for marriage, and you got to do the right thing. So I'm 16 going on 17 when she got pregnant. And you're going to tell me that I'm getting ready to get prepared for something that I can't even raise myself because I come from the streets. I was hard, tough. I mean, I did crazy stuff, but I was it. I attended the church. Church put it in me. So the church that I'm attending is now telling me that I need to be prepared to marry this person. And at the time, I can't raise myself. So anyway, I did a whole bunch of classes, counseling, all kind of stuff, scriptures, laying of hands, all that stuff. And we did that. Then I joined the military. Before I left, I said, Rev, church, I ain't ready. Well, I come back to visit my sons, and they give me the, the old heavy, come on, do the right thing. And if you leave, it ain't, you're gonna do some crazy stuff. And so I did this. I said, I'm gonna give it a shot. So I was just recently, fast forward, I was just talking to my sons about this, and just the last couple of days, and they said, Pops, now, you love God, love people, servant leader, all this stuff. But why do you think the marriage failed? And are you gonna date? You gonna get married again? So I answered them, and I said, and I'm always been transparent with my kids, but this is what I told them. I said, I was not prepared, shouldn't have did it. I told her that, I was honest, but I gave it a shot. And the main reason why I'm emphatic about that, now I look back, because Tracy said something very powerful. I think we do a disservice to people at that young age to try to entice them to do something, and you have not coached, mentored, and trained them properly, and really get them to understand the seriousness of having a relationship like that, even being in a relationship, number one, and doing it the right way and having a standard. I didn't understand how the Bible and having a relationship with somebody fit, being transparent. I just didn't. No, nobody took their time. Two, if you really read the Bible, it's not a lot in there about really technically dating. And you got scriptures, I was just reading one where Jesus was in Matthew 22 and 34 through 40. And he's telling us, hey, guess what? You got to love God. And I had to learn this the hard way. If you don't know how to love God, it's hard loving people. It really is, because you'll just love yourself. So a lot of selfish behaviors, a lack of modifying your behavior to be in a relationship. It's a lot of stuff that you just miss when you're not properly coached, mentored, and trained. And I'm talking about not only from the global church perspective, but I'm talking about just people that's senior or experienced. They don't tell the truth. And that's my second thing. I think there's a lot of lying going on, because when I was coming up, the people in our community they were taught to hide stuff when it came to their relationships. Even if you've seen very deceptive things going on, it was not spoken of. And nobody really wanted to talk about the mistakes they made or how do you redeem or facilitate really correcting that and doing it the right way when it comes to God. And here's my third piece. The company you keep when you're in these relationships and you don't really know what you're doing can be destructive. And I've gotten a lot of advice from a lot of people in that 41 years. And I can tell you, there was a lot of people that I thought their stuff was straight and it was jacked up. And the advice they gave me was jacked up. And I didn't know how to process that. I'm like, okay. And I trusted them instead of relying on God. And that's transparency. So I think those three things for me was critical. I don't have any regrets, to be honest with you. God bless me. I got beautiful children, beautiful grandchildren. I'm learning to learn who I am. I think that when you marry the people for that length of time, you don't do checkups or check-ins. That was for my relationship. I can't speak for nobody else. I really didn't do that. We just kind of moseyed along and just thought everything's cool, and then it wasn't. And then one day we just realized we changed. Things are different, and we had no kids, nothing. So I just want to throw that out there. I think we just do a disservice when we don't really be transparent with these folks that's trying to build relationships with people, and we don't really get them to understand what a benchmark and standard is for. Tracy said something powerful the other day. She said, man, people do these vows. I've married people over and over, and they'll come up with these vows. And I went back and asked several of them when they said they was getting a divorce or separating or whatever. And I said, well, what happened to the vows? And they said, inevitably, they said, you know what? I hadn't even looked at them. I didn't even check on them. So I just want to throw that out there. I yield the mic.
Thank you so much. You know, relationships alone, even just sister sister, brother sister relationships, they're tough because we're all our own separate individual and we're going to disagree about things. I mean, that's just human nature. We're not going to agree with each other all of the time. And so that brings about a strain in any type of relationship. Relationships are hard, but marriages are harder because see, now you got that commitment factor in there. Okay.
And then, and not to let me throw this in here too, transparency, because I want us to really talk about this too. So what happens when you come from a family that's dysfunctional and they're teaching you to be unfaithful, but to hide it?
Ooh.
Yes. And I'm speaking for my family. I ain't got nothing to hide. That's the way I was raised. I was, as a man, I was told, take care of your home or any relationship you're in, you do what you do. You're a man. But you just don't bring that to your house or into your relationship. Now, I just want to throw that out there too. Like,
wow.
How do you do that?
Yeah, that's powerful, and that does happen. It does happen. It does, and I've heard a lot of men say, "Well, you know what? They're not lacking. My home is taken care of. So hey, that gives me the license to do what I want to do." And that is not true because you have to consider everybody involved. There's several stakeholders besides yourself and what you want to do. 9 times out of 10, there are children that you're trying to raise and mold to have values. You have that spouse there who's hurting and that needs you there with her and those kids. The whole family dynamic is just jacked up and tore up from the floor up. The whole thing. And so you're right. I have heard that. I've seen that and I've witnessed that. And that's what most men, hey, my family's not wanting anything. They're taking care of. I take care of home. And as long as I take care of home, oh well. But that does not give you the license to kill. And when I say kill, to kill someone's spirit. Jessica, good evening. Welcome. And just kind of give us your perspective on dating and Christian relationships.
Just listening. I mean, it's a lot to unpack there. And for me, I think one of the biggest things is communicating your expectations from the beginning. I wish someone would have told me that. Even at a young age, being able to have that conversation as to what you need as an individual. I think it was said that, the idea of being married all those years and not doing checkups on each other. We change. People's perspective and life change based on their experiences, based on different things. And I think being able to communicate, I remember as the baby girl in my family and leaving a really bad relationship. I was engaged before and it was a verbally abusive relationship. And I just thought it was normal because I just said the bills were paid, things were taken care of, physical needs were met, but emotional, mental, intellectual, it was just toxic. And I remember having to start over and go back home. And I have 2 younger brothers who are like 10 and 13 years younger than me. And my brother who was 10 years younger than me was in high school at the time. And they didn't really have conversations with us girls about dating other than just don't give it up. That was really it. Don't give it up. Be a good girl, because if they can get it, they're not going to want to be with you. But talking to my brother who was interested in a young lady, he had the understanding of respecting a woman, but he didn't know how to communicate. He was like, well, I don't know what to do. And so me kind of coaching and say, well, tell her how you feel. Or ask her about herself, get to know her, having those conversations that I wish someone would have had with me. I think was really valuable in that. And then being able to continue to take that on, because even I think in our marriage, I've been married for 11 years now. And in 11 years, so much has changed. We have children. And growing up, I didn't live in a household with my mother and my father. I lived in a household with my mom, and then I would go visit my dad and my stepmom on weekends. And so the picture that I saw, depending on what perspective I was looking, was very different. And so with my mom was in a relationship where it wasn't the type of relationship that she would have wanted me to be in. And then on my dad's perspective, it was that same relationship of, well, we're married, but what happens between us or what happens here stays here. We don't really talk about it. And so not understanding how to navigate emotions in relationships, not understanding how to navigate communication. You just kind of go with the flow. Okay, we get up, we go to work. You have your role, right? You cook, you clean, you do this because you're a woman. and I go to work and I provide and I do this because I'm a man. And so then getting into my marriage and not being able to communicate that, those traditional roles didn't work for me. Military changed, my perspective was very different. And so, and my husband's perspective was different, but we didn't know how to communicate that. And so we're drowning in seasons of our marriage because we're trying to take on roles that we saw before that may not have been working for our parents, but no one ever said how you communicate that. What do you just kind of continue to go on with it, happy or not? And I think that is a really, really big key when it comes to even just whether you're married or you're dating. The expectation, like someone said, we're just dating, we're just hanging out. No, I'm not. I'm not seeing you just to hang out. That's not my end goal. And being open and upfront, as I said, transparent upfront. Because if marriage is not your end goal, then this I don't want to waste my time here. I want to continue to move on and look for something that meets what I'm expecting. And if you want to date and play the field and do that, I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who are willing to do the same with you. And so just being open and honest and continuing to do that throughout your growth and throughout your relationships, I think is really, really a big key. So,
and I agree, communication is key. I mean, we have to know within ourselves what we are willing to accept and what we're not going to accept. And we need to communicate that with whomever we're interacting with. And you're right, we all have grown up in some situations and we've witnessed some things that's just not kosher or not what you want. I know for me, myself, my mother was a lot younger. My mother was 16, my dad was 25 when they got married. So she left her dad's house one day and married my dad the next couple of days. She graduated from high school, he picked her up and they left, and that was it. And so I witnessed some things with her because he was more or less grooming her to be an adult. And I witnessed some things and some control there at first. And I'm like, oh no, not me. And they had, I'm the type of person, if I'm involved with the man, I want him to have some creativity and select the gift that he knows is just going to really wow me. Birthday, I want to be wow. Christmas, I want to be wow. And my dad did do that. He and my mother had an understanding. Christmas Eve, they used to have these stores called Wilson's. They then turned to service merchandise. And every year, Christmas Eve, at 5 o'clock, before the store closed at 6, they would get in the car and they would ride to service merchandise. And she'd pick out her gift, he'd pay for it, and they'd come home. And she was just as happy as she could be. And I'm like, well, that's no surprise. He's not wowing you. But that worked for her. It didn't work for me. Even though he didn't buy the gift for me, but it didn't work for me. And so I knew from an early age, well, no, that ain't going to happen here. We're going to talk about some things. So when I married my ex-husband, and, he grew up Pentecostal, they did not celebrate pagan holidays. He did not tell me that before we got married. He did not tell me that after we got married. His sister told me that. And so we had a discussion. He said, well, no. I said, well, yeah, but we've been dating for 2 years and you come here every year for the holidays and celebrate like everything is okay. He said, well, yeah, I was enjoying it. I said, okay, well, since you enjoyed it, here's the deal. Anniversary, Christmas, birthday, you will buy Constance a gift. And you will pick it out. And you will surprise me. And you will wow me. And if you need some help, you better ask somebody that knows me, hey, what should I get? Because that's what you're going to do as long as you stay here with me. And so the 11 years we were married, he did that. He did that. Now, I didn't request anything for Mother's Day because we didn't have children. But if we would have had children, Mother's Day was going to get added to the list. So like Jessica said, you have to communicate those things. You have to communicate those things. He didn't have friends. He didn't like going any place. He didn't like going out. Okay, that was fine. He communicated that to me. That was fine. We worked that thing out. I knew that it was certain things he wasn't going to do, so I didn't ask him because I knew he didn't enjoy that and he was not going to do it. He was pretty much a loner. So that was okay. We have to communicate with each other and communicate our expectations, our needs, our wants, what we will tolerate and what we will not tolerate. So thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing. Siobhan, come on, strategize for us.
So absolutely, everything that you guys are talking about, it all goes along with not just communication, but effective communication. Because that's very important. Because communication could be one way, you know, and I could be saying something and the way that you receive it can be totally different than how I meant for it to go. And so conversations. Um, a lot of times I talk to people about having those unspoken conversations, having those candid conversations. There's a word I'm looking for, I'm gonna get it. But a lot of times we keep things to ourselves. We have a lot of stuff in our head, and we can make up some stuff when we have some time, right? When we don't talk about it, we can make up a whole story about how things should be, what I said, and then what he said, and then. But you know what? Sometimes if you take a moment to go talk to that person, ask a question, you might find out that it's not even how you imagined it. And so it's very important to keep the communication going all the time. Now, some people will they'll shy away from it and they'll say, well, I don't like to talk. I don't want to talk about my feelings all this time. It's going to be some compromise if you want to have a successful relationship. And if we're talking about dating, I heard someone say from the very beginning, set out your expectations. And I think that's very important. But if you have not done that, don't be afraid at any point in time to jump back in there and make a decision and say, hey, this is something I want to know or something I want to express to you. You can't be afraid of how they're going to take it. Okay. Especially if you plan on being with someone for a long time, you can't fear their response. So you're going to have to gain the courage to have those uncomfortable conversations. All right. And then when you're dating, someone talked about change as well. Expect change. I know we're all adults here. And I know dating when I was young, 20s looks totally different than what dating will look like, when we're older. And we have to realize that. So from the very beginning, what I would say about dating is you personally should know what you want out of this date. Number one, define it. Some people might think a date is just going out. Some people might think that, hey, once we go out on a date, we're together, we're committed now. Because you'll find sometimes you might be in a relationship with somebody and they're not in a relationship with you. So it's important to make sure that you know what you want, express it, and then get that person's feedback. Find out if they're on the same page with you. Does this date mean something, the same thing to you as it means to me? Are we just going out and having fun? Are you just going with the flow? Whatever your answer is cool, but make sure that you know and that you express it to the other person. So that way you guys aren't just, something comes up later on. It's like, dang, I thought we were a couple, and you talk to them. It's like, I thought we was hanging out. A lot of heartbreak and heartache can happen when we don't express. So don't let fear and then also control, whether you know it or not, when you're trying to control a person's response by giving them different bits of information to make it the outcome come out a certain way. So don't let fear and control, which those two things usually run together, ruin your dating relationship.
Wow, thank you so much. So I have a question for everybody on the panelists. Let's go back to when you were 16 years old. I'm going to use that as the age. Most of us started dating about 16.
Just a couple years ago, just a few years ago, right?
We used to say, take company.
Oh, Lord.
All right, take it way back, take company. Okay, so, things have changed. Our younger generation, they are dating and getting involved a whole lot quicker. And they're not dating. They're hooking up. And they do it God knows what to God knows who. And they're just out there, and I'll give you a perfect example. My son was in line at the return during the Christmas holidays one year and met a young lady. And before Christmas came the next year, they had already broken up and had a baby. And I said to both of them, you guys did not plan this thing and talk this thing out very well, did you? I mean, in less than a year. I mean, they met December during the Christmas holidays in the line at Walmart exchanging some stuff. They hooked up, and by the time December got here the next year, the baby was here, and they had been split up about 6 months. So that's what I'm saying. The dynamics of relationships have changed. And what people do not realize, that's young and old, and you can be the best of friends, once sexual intercourse becomes a part of the dynamic, that dynamic changes. You're no longer just the best friends. It's more serious. And all types of preconceived notions come in there. One person is thinking one thing, oh, well, hey, we it now. You know, we were together last night, girl, he loved me. And we're it. And he thinking like, that was it. I'm going on. And it happens all of the time. So take yourself back to when you were 16. Knowing what you know today, what would you tell your 16-year-old self today? And Tracy, I'll start with you.
Oh, Jesus.
Since you had the biggest smile on your face, I'll start with you.
Oh, my God. Oh, Jesus. Hold on. I'm trying to think. What was I doing at 16? Oh, Lord. My 16-year-old self, Jesus, take the wheel.
You got it already. Just go ahead.
Oh, it's too much to tell. My 16-year-old I was something else. Oh Lord, I ain't gonna say what my grandma used to call me, Jesus.
Oh Lord.
Oh Lord, have mercy. You know what? I'm gonna put it to you like this. I grew up with the guys, and when I say I grew up with the guys, being 16, it was so crazy. I was always around the guys, so I learned a whole lot from the guys, and I would laugh because I grew up with guys. They automatically felt like, oh, she's messing with him, or she's da, da, da. And I'm like, I don't want him. He want me, but I don't want him. So my 60-year-old self, I did things because I wanted to do it, but I used to just do some very, very unusual things. And I'm gonna leave it like that. let me think about it, because I've been doing a whole lot.
You may need to pray on that one, okay?
Oh, Jesus. Hold on.
You may need to pray on that one, Tracy.
Oh, that's a lot of prayer.
Lord. Yeah, Pastor Coxfield.
Oh,
why?
I was nasty. I'm being honest. Because let me tell you why. You said that. Oh, so first of all, I'm from Peoria, Illinois, and I grew up with Richard Pryor's family. I worked for their family, so it don't take a genius to figure out. They had a lot of brothels, sex shops, and I seen a lot of stuff. I did, and pornography was nothing when I was coming up. I mean, nothing. So I just grew up in a very nasty environment where, you seeing pimps, prostitutes, and all kind of crazy stuff. I see. So, when you at that age, I'm numb. So it was business as usual when you at that age for me. I mean, I was just like, okay, if this was sex is about, and I done seen some crazy stuff. I'm like, okay. And I used to even I'll never forget this. I asked one of the prostitutes when I was coming up. And I used to see them, all the time. And so I asked one of them, I said, why you do this? And she said, baby, one day you're going to understand. She said, I'm doing this to survive. But she said, but you got to understand too. She said, I'm always going to have a problem loving people after this. And so she said, I just want you to understand this. Sex is one thing, but loving a person is a whole nother subject. She said, you're just too young to understand it right now. So for me, I was, and I'm not devaluing myself, I'm just being transparent. I grew up in a very sexual, crazed environment that really, it was a business, and it wasn't too much taboo. It just, once you close your door, nobody talked about that part. So that's why when she got pregnant, I mean, for me, it was like, oh, wow. Now I'm gonna throw this out here. So I was upset at first because I'm like, man, that's a mess my game up, because I was a cold person. And so I could turn it on and turn it off, because that's what I seen. That's the environment I was in. And if you didn't know how to do that, you didn't survive in that type of environment. So sex was a tool for me at that age. And I hope y'all can understand, what I just said. But it's that was me at 16.
So what would you tell your 16-year-old self today, knowing what you know now?
I needed God. I needed God bad. I mean, because you know what? This is crazy. Because I grew up in a church parsonage. That's what's weird. My dad, we grew up in a church parsonage. So we got all this nasty, crazy stuff going on at the house and around this church. And the church is 30 foot from me. And I'm attending this church. And it was a community center. And it's like I'm hearing the word. I'm seeing people demonstrate what family should look like, all that stuff. But unfortunately, once those church doors closed, I was back in the urban jungle. So if I could do it over, you know, I have no regrets for my parents and none of that. No, I don't. I don't. They only did what they knew. But I needed God real bad. And I wish somebody had really latched on to me again at coach, mentor, and train me and kind of got me to see something different. Because unfortunately, you know, those church folks, and they nothing against them, but they attended the church in the community. Once they was done, they left. And so they had a different perspective of what we were dealing with every day. So I would tell if I could go back, I would definitely have looked at God totally different. I would have. I needed a standard in my life, and I didn't have it.
Wow. That's amazing. Siobhan.
So at 16, what I would tell myself is date them all. So don't just be committed. Date them all. That's what I tell my daughter, my oldest daughter. Date them all. Get you a team. That's what I would tell my 16-year-old self, because at that time, you know, I see it now. You don't need to be committed, but you know, keep your legs closed. Guys, keep your pants up, but date them all. You know, find out what you like, what you don't like, you know, some things about yourself, and ask more questions and be more direct about what you actually want and don't want and what you're going to put up with, because it can kind of set the stage for when you become an adult, you know, how things are going to go. So 16, date them all.
All right, Jessica.
I love that perspective them all. And we had the freedom today from, you know, they're gonna look at you like, oh, you ain't gotta be sleeping. But what I would tell my 16-year-old self is get to know who you are first, and it's okay to be alone. I think a lot of times, especially at 16, that peer pressure among your peers, right? Everybody who you booed up with, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, and things of that nature. But understand the fact it's okay to be alone. It's okay to hang out with your friends and you're the only one that don't have a boo, because you're getting to know who you are. What do I like? What don't I like? And sometimes we do learn from just observing other people, you know, other individuals, different things like that. And I think that's something valuable that I did not give myself a chance to learn until later on. And I think knowing now, then what I know now, would have prepared me so much more for life and just dating in general and being able to speak up for myself. I think when you know who you are and value who you are, then you're able to fight for what it is that you know you deserve. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. And for myself, stand firm in what you believe. Be that true Proverbs 31 woman, know your worth. And like you said, it's okay to be by yourself. I know when I was graduating from college, all my friends were engaged. We came back from Christmas. Everybody was engaged except me. I went to more weddings that summer. I went to everybody's but my own. And so when children get older, all of my friends' kids were graduating from high school, and they were sending out invitations for their kids to graduate from high school. And I had a 4-year-old in kindergarten that was graduating. So guess what? I had him some invitations made, and I sent them to them. And they're like, you should be ashamed of yourself. Well, you sent me your graduate, and I'm sending you mine. So things happen in our lives when God plans for them to happen, and being 37 and having a baby for the first time, and my mother was like, honey, babies come when they are supposed to come. And when she said that, I thought about it. If I would have had that child at 21, that would have been a child for my parents to raise, because I would not have been prepared. But at 37, I had a career. I had finished my education. My house was paid for. I was ready. I was ready. And so I would say to anybody and any young person listening, or just anybody, any young person who's not sure, and you just feel you're alone and you want to be with somebody, learn to love yourself. Learn to enjoy your own company. Learn to appreciate yourself. You don't need a man to buy flowers for you. I buy myself fresh flowers every week. Every week. I don't need to wait for a man to do that for me. I do it for myself because why? That's what I enjoy. Learn to take care of you. Learn to love you. Learn to respect you. That's what I would tell my 16-year-old self today if I had the chance to do it. I probably would also say date them all too, like Siobhan. I mean, when you think about 16, you're not trying to get married. You having fun. Okay, but just keep that dime between your knees. But keep that dime between your knees. That's all you got to do. So this has been a very good discussion. I thank all of you for joining. I hope the listeners have enjoyed it. We've got some comments here from someone named Kashana Monet. She says, very true. The Global Caregivers Network say when you first meet someone, it is okay to give out your first and last name. No, it's okay to give out your first and last name today. And so she said from a male perspective, so Pastor Cockfield, is that okay?
Yes, it sure is.
Okay. And then she said, for me, come on through, Mama Constance. I don't know what she was talking about, but anyway. So thank you all for joining. Thank you all for supporting this premium launch of relationships and Christian dating. We will return again on the 4th Tuesday of this month. And we will have some new panelists and some old that were here tonight will return as well. So thank you so much. And someone says, 60, oh, please, that's about YouTube being stupid. But anyway, have a good night. And thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.